Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much. I just want to say happy National Caribbean American Heritage Month. We're so happy and excited that you're here this evening to join us for another hearty and insightful conversation during our MSME week. This evening, we'll be talking about the business of sports, and we will be hearing some wonderful perspectives today from our esteemed panelists. They're going to go through some of the work that they do, the business that they're a part of, their organization. We're going to look at topics of how you enterprise the business of sports, what are the opportunities for growing sports within the economic sector, the skills, partnerships, investments, and the strengths needed for Caribbean sports in the industry, and what must be done to highlight the economic benefits of sports throughout the Caribbean and ensure that it remain within our communities, right? So we're looking to explore topics such as sports entrepreneurship, marketing, management, finance, media, licensing, and innovation overall in Caribbean sports, because we really would like to see our diaspora and our communities reach its full economic potential. So, without further ado, thank you so much for your patience and being with us this afternoon. I am going to head straight to our panelists and give them the pleasure of introducing themselves. They are esteemed in their own regard and so much in terms of their background. So, I will give them the opportunity to share with us, firstly, just a little bit about themselves before we dive into this party conversation and exchange. So I will start with Council Katie Ann Townsend. She will be the first up to introduce herself, tell us a little bit about herself and her practice and what she does. Katie Ann, over to you.
Thank you. Good evening. So happy to be here. It's a pleasure to be in this room with you all and to share a little bit about myself, my practice, and just edify the community that's here today about the things that pertain to sports and media. As far as background, I was born and raised in Jamaica, so I am of the Jamaica diaspora. I am currently in New York. I am the managing attorney for the Townsend Law Firm, which is headquartered in New York City. We specialize in business law and sports, entertainment, and media, which there's a huge intersection of all three areas, which we'll get into more this afternoon. But my firm represents everyone from small businesses to small entrepreneurs, creators, all the way up to well-known names like Vibes Cartel. We do a lot of work in the entertainment space and particularly in media. I like to say that sports law is really just entertainment, is really just media law. We coin it as sports because the client is the athlete, but it really is a cross section of media, oftentimes working with sponsorship deals, endorsement deals, licensing, and a whole host of other types of law and business. So I'm looking forward to sharing today, and hopefully if there's any questions at the end, we can do like a Q&A, and I'd love to hear from others as well. So pleasure to be here today. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And yes, we will be doing a Q&A as well. So listen intently and get ready with your questions. We are here to be able to answer them and to help strengthen this conversation as much as we possibly can. I will now pass the mic, literally, to her other esteemed panelists that will be joining us today, Council Jeffrey Whitney. So I will pass it to you so you can introduce yourself, just give us a little bit about your background, and then we'll move into the conversation itself with the questions that we have here for you today.
Thanks, Pauline. I really appreciate the introduction. Super excited to be here today. Ironically enough, I did a similar panel for Africa for the Embassy of Zimbabwe last week, and now I get to then kind of do it for the Caribbean. And so just really enjoying these conversations about where we are as African people in the sports industry, and more importantly, where we need to go. And so really excited today to continue that conversation that started last week. As far as background, I'm a licensed barred active attorney. I'm the president and co-founder of the Sports and Entertainment Group. We're a full service sports agency based in Washington, D.C. My partner and I have been doing this for 20 plus years. When I first started, I did not have all of the gray and white hair. We've been doing it a long, long time. We built this into, we're the largest independent Black-owned NFL, American football agency in the country. One of the top 10 largest NFL agencies, period. In addition to representing NFL players, we have a handful of basketball players, we represent coaches, personnel, anyone who's considered the talent within this industry. We likely are representing. We've had the opportunity a few years ago to do a little bit of work for Shelly Ann Fraser-Price. We've got a tennis player, race car driver. It kind of runs the gamut as far as individual representation. But that's what we do here. Very proud of what we built and very proud, hopefully, to continue having this conversation with folks here.
Thank you so much, much appreciated. I also just want to take the time out one more time to give you guys kudos for what you are doing for our communities and the extreme work, the I want to be able to find the right word for it in terms of the dynamic work that you all have been doing within your own industry and especially lifting up our communities. I think that is something that I'm always very happy and excited about, especially as we think about longevity and the sustainability of our athletes for sports futures, for Caribbean sports future. What does that look like? And so representation matters, right? We hear that all the time and we understand the importance and the significance of saying representation matters. But when you're in the room with people that are actually a part of that representation, who have been doing the work, who has a wherewithal behind them for the work that they have done, who stand up with us for our people and our communities, it's such a beautiful thing, especially as someone that is a part of the Caribbean diaspora. You both mentioned some very notable names that we can all in this room really truly appreciate. And we thank you for just being in the space, being the actual faces, and not just the face, but actually the work of representation matters. So we're going to move in readily into the first question. You all did explain a little bit about your background, but I'm going to ask a question a little bit more just to pull out some more about your practice. So the first question I have for you this evening is just for you to share, you both to share with us a little bit more about your practice, but in the sense of how did you get involved in sports law? So what happened that made you decide that this is the arena that I want to be in? This is where I would like to tussle and be the powerhouse that you both are. So I will start with Kadian and we'll just go with that flow. So we'll start with Kadian and then we'll move it to you, Attorney Jeffrey, as well. And then we'll continue the conversation. So Kadian, you're up.
So how I got into this area of practice, I started out, and obviously I'm very young, so I'm pretty new to some extent, or young in my career, which is exciting, right? But I started out in corporate, so I used to do corporate law and work on like securities litigation and just very different, completely different. But I always had a passion specifically for entertainment, and sports has been something that, I grew up in house. Like my brother was an athlete. He went to college on a scholarship. He ran track, captain of the soccer team. So sports was always something that was around me. And as I went to law school and I graduated, people who are in my community would reach out to me to review a contract, to, just different things in the sports and entertainment field. So that's really like how I got into the world of sports and entertainment and media. And then when I launched my own practice, that became a central part of the practice and one of the big practice areas, essentially. But I think one of the differences between my experience, perhaps, and Counsel Jeffrey is that we don't represent athletes in terms of like being their agents. We really represent athletes and individuals in terms of media deals and brand scholarships, not scholarships, sponsorships. So I think a huge thing and a big takeaway that, I'd like the audience to walk away with is that traditionally athletes have been seen as just athletes, but we're in a very exciting time where like athletes are now a business. They're entrepreneurs. When you see an athlete, it's no longer just them on the track field or on the basketball court. It's them in commercials. It's them in magazines. It's them with headphones on selling the product. So that's one of the biggest things that we're seeing now. And I'm really excited because it's the crux of what we do at my firm.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Truly appreciate that. And thank you for explaining a little bit more into the depths of what you do in regards to the athlete being a brand. And that is so important, especially in the age of social media these days. And we're seeing the impact of just probably one athlete doing a post on social media and the impact it would have on the people who get to absorb it. And that's just a small piece of the equation, but that's the first thing that came to mind. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Council Jeffrey to share with us how did he get into the field, what made him decide that this is the place that I want to be and to take up space here. So Council Jeffrey, over to you.
Yes. So for me, sports is what really got me into college. Ended up leading me to go to law school. I'm from a small farm town in Kentucky, 190 people. Through sports, I was able to earn a scholarship. Then from undergraduate school, I was able to get to law school. So it was sports that led me and got me off the farm, so to speak. And so sports had always been just super important to me. I've played since I was small, like a lot of people, right? And so I got out of law school and I was trying to find my way a little bit, right? And there were a couple of things that I just knew that I wanted to do with my law degree. I went to law school to hopefully make this earth, to make this place where we live a better place. And so I tried to find what it is and where I can make the largest impact. And so for me, the conversation was easy, is that in the Black community, I mean, we're all watching the World Cup. Doesn't matter where it is, whether it's Ecuador or Spain or whoever, you see Black talent, right? Right. What I knew at the time is that, you know, it's these sports, particularly professional sports, they're extractive, right? The whole idea is for other people outside of our community to extract as much as they can these resources. And so for me, as I was trying to figure out what it is, where I fit, I had the sports background, I had the law background. I knew that I wanted to be of service to my people and my community. Within our community, certainly here in the US, sports and entertainment is dominated by people who look like the people on this call, right? By Black people. And so for me, it was a service call, right? I literally, you know, without trying to sound corny or hokey, for me and my partner, we built this practice to be a service to our community. Understanding, right, that the money that these players, again, we represent the players, the money that they make can transform their lives, their families' lives, and more importantly, if we do this right, can build communities and leave a large societal impact. And so for me, that was what drove me here, right? We can look at the numbers. The numbers are the numbers, right? The sports industry generates $2.3 trillion, right? That's now. In the next 20 years, it's going to be $8.8 trillion, right? Now, when you look at the Black world, so to speak, rich nations, they invest about 0.5% into sports, into their GDP into sports, right? Africa, the Caribbean, it's about 0.1. And so I just wanted to be part of changing that conversation, right? Really helping have the conversation about this, we have a lot of influence in this area. We should be doing everything we can to make sure that we're just not allowing people to extract the talent, but that we're building out this ecosystem where Black people are benefiting from the labor, for the hard work. And so that's what led me to where I am now.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate you sharing that and giving me some more insight. Oftentimes, when we think about sports, we don't always hear it coming from from the lens of service. And I'm so happy that you were able to add that additional scope to it in terms of you went into this field because you were really dedicated into adding a service, not just for yourself in terms of finding your niche. You and KDN had that in common, that immediate connection with sports, right? But really coming in to really help uplift our communities, and not just for what is happening in terms of the growing sports industry as it is now, but what that looks like for the future in terms of sustainability for the future. And I really like the part where you added on the fact of, okay, it is a very lucrative industry, but let's look at the impact of that. How does it impact our communities, right? It impacts the players, their families, the communities around them, how they're able to contribute to the world around them. And so what you all do it's extremely important. I'm so happy that we're getting to have this conversation today. So I have a follow-up question for you all. One of the things I really think that is important to share is, you both mentioned earlier in the conversation, you just name dropped a little bit, a couple of the clients that you work with. So it's pretty cool because, our viewers and the people that are on the webinar today can connect with some of those names. But would each of you just kind of go through a couple of the clients and what type of clients you work with, and what is your specific role in helping them to be successful? So how do you position yourself when you're working with these clients in terms of like advocacy, being of service, and just getting the work done around the legalities of it all and the representation of it all? What type of clients do you work with, and what role do you really play in helping them being the successful clients that they are from some of the people that you have mentioned? And so we can start with you, Katie.
Okay, so my firm, again, so we focus heavily on like the media side of it. So we work with everyone from individuals to film production companies to athletes to just individuals who are using their name, image, and likenesses for commercial purposes. So in advising them, a huge part of what we do is negotiating agreements. So if your organization comes and would like to, engage one of our clients to do a commercial, we make sure that the terms of those contracts are within the expectation of our clients, that we know whether or not they're exclusive. Can they work with other brands as well as similar brands? How much of our rights are we given? How long is this commercial or whatever the product is? How long? What's the duration of it? Are there royalties? Is this a one-time payment, or is it something that is perpetual? I think oftentimes people don't really understand how much of their rights they're giving up, and the amount of leverage that they have to really maximize on their talent, on their image, on their likeness, on their successes, on their influence. So those are some of the conversations that we have with our clients to really, one, help them to understand their value. Again, you're more than just an athlete. You are someone of influence. Like if you post something right now, there are 2 million people who will go out and buy the product because you posted it. So just helping our clients understand their value, helping them to maximize those values and negotiate contracts effectively. Because like Jeffrey said, like there are a lot of us and we're the ones who are dominating in a lot of these industries. And sometimes our contracts don't reflect that because we don't have proper representation. So we just make sure that our clients are positioned well to capitalize on opportunities and again, see themselves as brands and see themselves as businesses and not just an athlete who's competing on the court.
Representation is really important for helping see themselves out of the box of just an athlete, and just really the breadth and the length and breadth of what that means. So thank you so much for what you do. I will pass it over to Council Jeffrey as well to share from his perspective the type of clients that he works with and the role that you actually play in being a part of their success, you and your partner and your firm. What does that look like for you on a day-to-day?
Katie, and she said it without saying it, and I think she probably would agree with me. I think, at least based on her conversation, what I'm hearing, and certainly for me, I think my major role is really as an educator. Right? It's educating these young people. And here's the reality now. We represent more high school and college players now in that space than we do professional players because of the professionalization of amateur sports. So the conversation has to start very early on, and that conversation is about education. Katie said it. We have to let these people know that this isn't about how high you can jump, how far you can run, how fast you can run. This is business at the highest level. Again, $2.3 trillion going to $8.8 trillion. Here's the reality in the 4 leagues here in the States, and we can extrapolate and go out because the numbers are the same. About 87% of NFL players, National Football League players, end up broke within 5 years. 80% of NBA players will end up broke within 5 years. Baseball, hockey, we can go down the line to track and field. We can keep going down the line. It's an epidemic, right? And so what do we do and how do we change that? And it starts with Katie and said, we have to have these young people start understanding the business of the sport, because this is business at the highest level. Now, mind you, this business will allow you, the talent, to make a living doing something that all of us, quite frankly, would love to do, right? But with that, it's great responsibility, right? And so the fact that so many of these young people enter into this industry with great hopes, great dreams, right? The ability to transform their lives and their families' lives and their communities for generations. And then what we typically get is rags to riches and back to rags. So for me, the conversation I'm always having is one of education. The type of client that I'm looking for is someone who just doesn't see him or herself as the talent, someone who wants to learn the business of the sport, someone who wants to help build in this community. That's the conversation I'm having. That's the type of client that I'm looking for. That's because my conversation is pretty simple. I have a conversation. I'm going to talk about sports. I'm talking about Black people. Other than that, I don't have a lot of conversation. And so for me, it's just finding people who really, really want the truth. Katie's point, who want to be educated and understand this. The reason that so many of these folks, we can talk about the reasons, right? But primarily it's because they don't see themselves as anything other but the talent on the field or on the court. And until we change that conversation, that number is not going to go down. Until we get more people like Katie and myself who have a real affinity to our community, people who want to live in that space, it's not going to get it. We need more doctors and lawyers and trainers. We need more Black people in this space, more accountants, more wealth and financial planners within this space. And that's a call that I'm making there. If you have this skill set, any of these, we should be trying to help and direct these young people, because the amount of money that is in this industry, it's astronomical. And the things that we could do for our community, it's mind-boggling to me, but it doesn't happen. It can't happen if 87% of the players end up broke. They're not even able to take care of themselves, let alone their families, or let alone building communities. And so for me, that's the conversation, and those are the clients that I'm looking for.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Kadian.
No, if I could just add on to that,
Yeah, please.
in keeping with just saying the truth is that if you view yourself only as an athlete, that could easily come to a quick halt with one injury. But if you build yourself as a brand and as a business, even when you're injured, there are other avenues in which you can still support yourself and support your family and keep business going. And I think that in advising clients, that has to always be something that you have in your head. Like, if something happens and you can no longer get on that field and play, how is it that you can maintain the brand and continue to make money and to support yourself and your family and those who are counting on you? So that has to always be a part of the conversation. So thank you, Jeffrey, for bringing that point.
Thank you both. This is such an important conversation to have, especially when we see the way that sports and entertainment has really a hold on our communities and our culture, everyone worldwide. I'm in Dallas right now, and the World Cup is happening. And, I went to look at a game with Argentina, and there were so many fans even outside of the stadium, more than even that they were inside of the stadium. There were people all over the city just really celebrating. But the one of the power of sports, which I really, really can appreciate, is how it has the ability to bring people together, right? No matter the language that we speak or how we look, we are connected by that common mission. And as someone who's a sports mom, I have a son who lives and breathes basketball. You guys are really inspiring me right now in terms of thinking, like, how am I able to show up in a way that's like supportive and really meaningful for all the friends that he surrounds himself with, with that are a part of this sport culture and community that is being brought up. So you guys are really stirring something in me today, and I really appreciate that. Now, the third question that I had for you, Council Jeffrey spoke about this a little bit in terms of thinking about sport as a business, and Katie, and you did make reference to that too, in terms of athletes seeing themselves not just as an athlete, but as a brand. So tell us a little bit, both from your perspective, like what does it mean when it comes down to it, to think about sports as a business? If you had to just sum it all up, what does it mean to think about sports as a business itself and not just being an athlete positioned playing sports? Katie, and you can go first.
Sure. So to think of yourself as a business and not just an athlete, I think first to think of yourself only as an athlete, it means that the way you show up ends when you get off the court or the track field or whatever sport you're in. But as a business, it continues wherever you go, right? So for us, we like to talk to our clients about what are the things that are valuable. What do you value most? You know, what are the things that you're interested in? Like if you are someone who is an avid, I don't know, you love music, then maybe we should explore partnerships with companies that have a music interest, maybe headphones or maybe Apple Music or whatever. We have to figure out what are your values, what are the products that you use, and then also thinking about the people that you connect with. What is the demographic of people that are following you? Who do you have the most influence with? Is it teenagers? Is it older people who are into sports? So thinking about all of those things are important when you think about the business, because it then allows you to create a strategy in terms of how you will leverage your influence, in terms of how you would negotiate with whoever the brand or the sponsorship that you're negotiating with. Those are the strong points in which you can negotiate a brand deal. So yeah, I think that those understanding who you are, what you value, the things that you like, and really trying to find out which products are most aligned with you and then negotiate it in that way.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Anything to add, Council Jeffrey? What do you have to add to what Katie has said?
Yeah, and so again, part of it is just having these open conversations and dialogue. And for me, these conversations, I don't know how old your son is, Pauline, but I signed an eighth grader last week. He's 12 years old, 13 years old. He has a bunch of offers. But I'm already having these conversations, and it's not about how far he can throw the ball or kick the ball. It's about him entering into a $1 billion industry, right? NCAA industry here, the college sports industry. They take in about 18 to 19 billion dollars a year. This young man is about to enter that. And if he thinks he's only entering as a prospect or participant, then he's sorely mistaken, right? So my initial conversation is a bunch of truth. I get it. Everybody don't want it. Everybody ain't gonna receive it. But this is too important to individuals, to families, and to our communities to do anything other than tell the truth, right? And so for me, it's always going to be starting with the truth telling and getting players, young people, and their families to truly appreciate what they're about to enter into. A industry, again, where most people fail, right? Where most people end up not where they started, they end up far away from that. And so for me, that's part of it, again, is the conversation. The other part of the conversation, and I think from a community standpoint, right, is sometimes, and not to generalize, but sometimes we do treat folks who have these special physical skills different than someone who may have special mental ability. So a person who has special math skills, we'll trumpet them and they'll talk about how smart they are. And then we'll have someone who has this great physical skill, and it's almost as if we're like, it's a little bit less, right? In some kind of way, right? And so I think we have to, as a community, we have to fully appreciate genius as genius. And people can be mathematical geniuses, they can be track and field geniuses, but sometimes I'll have conversations with players and families who are a little bit almost shy about the ability that they have, right? And so I think as a community, we absolutely, look, education's important and we should be doing, but some of these folks have true, incredible ability physically, athletically, that we should be fostering, and right, for the right reasons, right? The larger part of this, though, is even from a governmental standpoint, even it's resources. This is a resource, right? If somebody came to Jamaica and was taking all the bauxite, people would be angry, people would be mad, right? People are going to have to extract the extra. We have to start looking at our athletic ability at this industry. These are resources, and our resources are being taken, and these resources are building empires all over the world, except in Africa and the Caribbean and within our community here in the US. These are resources, and we should protect those resources. Just like we will protect a natural resource, we should be protecting this athletic ability because it's that important to our community.
Thank you both. I see a strong team here of really education in terms of education in the sporting industry, being able to educate not just the athlete but their families, and being able to shift the mindset and the thinking around how they see sports. That's a strong theme that's coming up from you both, and I applaud you all for the work that you do. So when we think about this culture of celebrating athletic excellence, right? How do we make that move or that shift from the celebration of athletic excellence? I believe you all would have touched on it a little bit, but if just in case you have any final points, how do we make that shift from celebrating athletic excellence to really building successful sports enterprises? What are the main considerations that for anybody who's listening or would like to be a part of the field, what are the things that they would need to consider to make that shift from celebrating athletic excellence to building successful sports enterprises? Katie, and you can go first. Yeah.
Sure. So I think there is a couple of things, right? So I think one, it is important for us as a community to first acknowledge that and celebrate it, and value it, not just celebratory value, but monetary value to it. I think that we also have a responsibility within the diaspora and the Caribbean community to give opportunities to athletes. I mean, if you have a business and you know there's an opportunity for you to collaborate or partner with certain athletes, I think before extending certain opportunities to people that might be outside of the diaspora or outside of our community, I think there's onus on companies within our own communities to extend a hand and to present opportunities to athletes. I think a lot of times people give other people opportunities before they give their own. And I think that that's one of the issues. I think there's a lot of opportunity. And I think that one of the ways we can address what you just said is by us adding value to it, recognizing it, and then giving opportunities to athletes who are rightfully deserving of it.
I agree with that. Any additions, Council Jeffrey?
Yeah, I'll go back. It really is education, and more education. I think universities and schools should be doing more in the area of focusing on sports related education and curriculum, and not just on people playing the sports, but helping people understand that this ecosystem, it's huge, it's big, it's dominated, at least the talent, by people from our communities. We should be imploring people with skill sets to get into the industry and help build it out, whether it's Africa, the Caribbean, or whether it's here in America, in our African American communities, our Black communities. We should be at universities coming up with ideas and curriculum, right? There should be conversations ongoing with governmental entities about how to better structure things, better build things out. You have a stadium, it's empty most of the year. We should be trying to figure out how to do things to make sure that we're monetizing that asset that the government has on public and private partnerships. And so for me, it's educational. It's making sure that folks understand. I can tell you this, if you ask 10 people about the sports industry, people wouldn't know that it's a business. They wouldn't even understand, fully appreciate it, or even think about it as a business, right? People think about it just as the participants, and they think about it only as fans. And yet, here's an industry that literally breaks in trillions of dollars, right? Here's the thing. The Caribbean, $45 million in revenue from sports. It's a drop in the bucket. Yet the Caribbean per capita has more Olympic medalists than any other region in the world, right? Again, we're building empires other places. We have to get back to basics We have to start having these conversations about this industry, this ecosystem, what it can do for people in the Caribbean. That's what the conversation has to be.
This
Yeah.
Go ahead, Katie. Council Katie, and you go right ahead. This is just it's such a moving conversation. I am beginning to feel the hour is not enough, so we definitely have to revisit this. But Council Katie, and you go right ahead.
No, I just wanted to add to that. In terms of the ecosystem, I think another thing that we really need to emphasize is building a team, right? If you are a business, you need the proper people on your team. So you need a competent attorney who understands business, who understands sports, who understands media and licensing and agreements and brand deals and all of those things. You also need a good accountant. You need someone who is going to advise you well on how to structure the business. Once you start doing business, we're no longer operating, in most cases at least, but generally, as individuals. So we need to figure out what corporate structure do we need to what corporate structure do we need to create in order to accomplish the goals and objectives of this business and this brand and this empire that we're building. So a part of the conversation and the education that is needed is really thinking about the ecosystem and the people that you need on your team to protect you, to protect your IP, your intellectual property, the brand that you're building, and how to keep that so that it's sustainable beyond however long you may thrive on the field.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I have another panelist who's actually active in the sports field in the Caribbean right now, and in the chat it was being shared that she felt like there needs to be a culture shift in the Caribbean. So as we get into the continue into the meat of the conversations, you both shared so much in terms of collaborations around our communities, creating opportunities for our own people within our own communities, utilizing the resources that we have, protecting the resources, seeing our athletes, our businesses as a part of those resources. There's so much that is shared here. But what do you both think? I'm curious to ask, but what do you both think, or do you see as the greatest untapped business opportunities in Caribbean sports? If you had to put your finger on something or pinpoint something, what do you think is that untapped area in Caribbean sports? And Council Katie, and you can go first.
That's a really good question. I don't know. I have to give that some thought. I think, honestly, I think it's just the value of the athlete. I don't think that a lot of athletes, especially from the Caribbean, understand the value that just their image and their name and how well they perform. Like there are people trying to figure out how Jamaicans are so fast, like naturally, like, you know what I mean? Like we just have so much to offer and there's so much value there. And I think sometimes maybe the culture shift that the participant, the attendee mentioned, I think, a lot of athletes from different countries may just want an opportunity to leave home and to hop on a flight and to see what else is out there in the world. They just want a visa to travel, and that is enough for them. But it's really helping them to understand that it's not just an opportunity to travel or to be on the big stage, but it's like, how can you actually use this opportunity to do something bigger? So I think it's really helping people to understand the huge opportunity that there is and translating that into something sustainable, which is the same theme that is recurring, because I think that is the basis and the core, the crux of all of this.
I really appreciate that. I think about my sister who does some PR and entertainment work in Grenada, and Grenada has like 3 Olympians for a small country of like 100,000 people. And like Council Jeffrey was sharing, when you look at the Olympic medals per capita in the Caribbean, we're truly dominated if you want to look at those type of statistics. Even Little Grenada itself, with 100,000 people, for Texans, they can't even wrap their head around that a country is that small. And for us, we think, oh, it's so huge, you know. But even seeing how some of these Olympians show up on the ground and how they use their voices to support different causes on the ground, for Women's Month or different things like that, it really helps me to think about how expansive and how important it is for when athletes tap into their value sets, tap into the person of who they are, and is able to apply that across the sporting industry. So, Council Jeffrey, what do you think is the untapped business opportunities in Caribbean sports?
Well, this could be an entire conversation like outside of this one. But for me, this is the most exciting part because here's the thing. Um, just to grow, to be in sports now, it's just an exciting time, right? You can do so much with so little, right? Literally, now you got a camera phone, now I'm a podcaster. Now I am creating content. So I think the first thing that people are missing on, again, and you have to have a shift in your mindset from fan to actual business person, right? And so you could be at the game and just watching, or you could be at the game creating content, the like, and those things. And here's the beauty of it. You don't have to go to NBC or any of the big broadcasting companies now. You can build this out yourself. So one, I think people are missing out on some of the original, authentic, digital advertising, marketing, however you want to call it, that they could be doing, right? That's one. I think the second thing that's really missing, and I had the same conversation when I did this business of entrepreneurship in Africa. It's really building out some of the popular indigenous games of places. And so you're seeing in Africa, you're seeing folks now, the stick fighting in South Africa, right? And so people are forming their leagues, right? You're some of the traditional wrestling in Senegal and some of those places, right? Within the Caribbean, there are things that are unique from a sports standpoint, right? That I think are valuable and that people would watch and that you could build things out. I would watch a dominoes league. I just would, right? Here, someone has monetized chess, checkers, all these different things, and people pay to watch it. So I think there's some real opportunities for some creative, innovative folks out there in the region to build out some things that are very unique, right? You've seen it, some cricket, I know, but I think there's just some things. I think that's where the lost and some of the missed opportunities are, is saying, okay, outside of some of the most popular stuff, right? But netball, right? Some things that are unique to the area is really forming leagues. Katie would know more of this than me, but you're talking media rights, all these different things. And you're seeing this all over the place. I've had some really good conversations with some folks in Africa over the last couple of weeks about really helping them build out some of this indigenous sports. There's sand surfing in Namibia. I had a conversation with a guy, and they're trying to build out a league. Look, there are emerging sports all over the place. If you can figure out how to do it, there's now these very popular 6-on-6 soccer leagues that people are flocking to, and they've got huge media. Wouldn't have thought it, right? My clients are investing in pickleball like crazy. I'm not a pickleball fan, but it's the biggest thing, and there's a league. I watch it at night, right? And so I think that creativity, that innovation, I know it's there. I know people, you figure out what it is that you all have that other people don't. Like there's a guy in Africa what's the board game? Is it Makala? They're the board game with the stones and they're gonna form like a league doing it, and people because it's serious, right? I know y'all. Look, my wife's Jamaican. Her dominoes, I would film it and watch it. I wouldn't even care who won because it would be funny just to watch it. But people are building entire leagues around just stories. Mancala, yes, Mancala. I do Mancala. There's going to be a Mancala league formed in Africa. And again, so for me, I think that's what's being the missed opportunity is having folks really say, look, what we have here is very special. It's unique to us. But man, it's a way to get this out to the world. Media rights, form leagues, and the like. And you really, I think, are on to something. The most popular, fastest growing sport from a social media standpoint is the Power Slap League. It's people literally slapping each other. They have 24 million viewers. The people
Wow.
who started that league are wealthy beyond who would have thought, right? So I think the emerging sports, breaking outside of it, there are no rules. You don't have to go through any sanctioning body. You figure it out, you do it, you figure out ways to distribute, you figure out ways to monetize. This is beyond my pay grade. This is Morcadian. This is beyond me. But I do know that it's out there, and that's what excites me more than anything, are the opportunities that are out there.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I love the term that you use in terms of indigenous sports, finding what is unique to us as a Caribbean region and really being able to capitalize on that. And those vivid examples, because you made an example about the sport that is the slapping league, and my son showed me a clip of something similar to that, and I'm like, "What is happening?" And he's like, "Mom, it's an actual league," and I'm like,
Yeah.
no way.
Yeah.
So,
And what those leagues like what they've done more than anything is they've been really good at building stories and storytelling around the
mhm,
people. They've been really creative because a lot of the larger leagues, they want to, they take black culture, but they want to tamp down on black individualism and those types of things. And so these leagues have said, you know what, we're going to let people be themselves. We're going to let them be creative. And they've built stories around these kind of interesting characters. And oftentimes those stories are better than the actual competition of the sport. And so I
absolutely.
just think the opportunities are really, really out there for young entrepreneurial people to really build some special things. But if somebody does a Domino's League, I want half of it because I want my. I'm joking.
That may be something we have to talk about, guys. But on the call today is one of the panelists, and netball was mentioned. She lived in the U.S. for a while. She's a dear friend of mine. She actually plays netball for leisure. Among the 500,000 things she did, she retired early, went back to St. Lucia, and is living her best island girl life. But she's also in so many spaces doing work within the communities, and still has time to play netball and really love it. On top of that, playing for one of the national teams in St. Lucia. So I think she's having some technical difficulties in terms of the camera, but I think she should still be able to speak.
Hello,
Saf,
hello.
you have been absorbing some of the conversation. I've been seeing some of your reactions, and so in the chat, you were speaking about the opportunity that we're glossing over in Caribbean culture, the shift of mindset that needs to be
Mm-hmm.
had. Uh, what can you
Yeah.
share from what you have been observing so far?
Yeah, so thanks for the shout out to netball. We love it, we love it. And I think if I can tie that in quite quickly. Wait, good evening, everyone. Sorry. I'm just excited because a lot of things are being touched that, in terms of monetizing, etc., we've been challenged with for years. So happy to hear it. But talking on netball, for instance, every year we have a regional tournament, at least one or two across the region with at least 8 islands. And to your point on monetizing or seeing it as a business, instead of being able to package or come together to create that, instead we're often struggling to find sponsorship. So to your point on knowing our value and the reason why I said there needs to be a culture shift, oftentimes what we find is approaching sponsors or corporate houses in the Caribbean. The thought is that an athlete, even if national or high performing, is a volunteer and should be proud to represent their country, and the pride basically is what should carry them. And this has been or is what is spread across athletes from the time they're starting. Is really like you're training to one day become a national athlete, and the pride should carry you, really is what is ingrained, so much so that myself and others who are newer to it, who have, like Paul said, been exposed to the US and know that in sports, if you're not talking millions, you're really not talking about anything, right? So we come and we say, guys, we at least need to give the players, a stipend because they have to find their way, transportation, water, all of these things. And they say to us that if they put this in the proposals, the sponsors will not give the money for these things. So it's really a challenge in the sense of us talking about knowing our worth. While the athletes may know their worth for some reason, whoever the ones, the handlers, the ones with the finances, for some reason they see the value in sports abroad, but they're not seeing the value in the athletes that are right here in front of them unless the athlete makes their way themselves, bootstraps, does all of the whatever they need to do. For instance, Julian Alfred in St. Lucia, she did all of it on her own. Her parents, were able enough to get her outside of St. Lucia, outside of the country. And now that she's successful, everybody is, like bandwagoning, so to speak. But Julian Alfred, when she was in St. Lucia, the expectation was she should be proud to represent St. Lucia. That is the culture and the mindset. And so we have to get our corporate people, our coaches, our administrators. When now I'm in the Netball Association, and so I try to hammer down, but I'm speaking to deaf walls because they're like, "What are you talking about? We don't pay for that. We pay for the flights, we pay for the hotel, we pay for food. That's it." And I'm like, so how do they get to training? They have to figure it out, really? A
How do they?
national athlete has to figure out how to get to training. And if we ask specifically for stipends for them, for the human, the athlete, it is seen as too much. So how do we even move? We can't even see the value of the athlete, which without the athlete, like where is the sport, really? None of us can do anything. There's no referee, there's no coach, there's nothing. If you don't have the athlete, you're not playing any game. And they don't see the benefit of paying the athlete. They believe that all of the things, the stadium, the service contractor, the referees should be paid. Everybody else can be paid. But God forbid, the athletes who need it, deserve it, are sacrificing. Sometimes losing work. They even have to lose work to come and, play for the country for pride. And I mean, for netball and things like that, we're seeing the demise because people now have to choose work instead of being an elite athlete. They say, oh, I can't play this sport anymore because what can I get from this thing? Because, I couldn't even get water sponsored as a national athlete. These are some of the things we deal with. So it is myself and others like me, we're, trying to package and tell the, more mature, our seniors, that we do need to get online, we do need to monetize, but it's really hard. It's really hard if you can't even get the finances to do it. Now you just have a band of volunteers who, like Pauline said, we're trying to do our own things, our own businesses. So then we do the sports on the side when we have some time. When really, sports is a whole business. That is a career. You can build something, but we don't have the finances. So you find we do our best with what we have. It's always pulling strings and trying our best and all sorts of things versus being in abundance where it's supposed to be. Because I heard you guys talking about we know our worth. I was an athlete too. I'm speaking because I was one, still one. Even when I found money, I raised it myself. I went to my friends in the US and I said, I need to raise money for my athletes. I was a captain. My association took it to buy something. I don't know, food or they didn't have enough to pay the hotels. So they had to take the money to pay the hotel because they're suffering, they can't get sponsorship. Yeah. So it's like that's what I'm saying. The culture of the volunteer cycle has to stop as to where and how. It's still a hard thing in our region, unfortunately. For some reason, the value is not shaping. We are trying. Some of us are doing great things, but largely there is this mindset like, oh, you know, you're a volunteer. You're not a professional, basically.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I've seen some of that similarly translate on the ground in other Caribbean countries. So, to our esteemed councils, and as a part of the call, she shared there an opportunity in terms of thinking around what can be done to bridge that gap. Do you guys have any feedback that you can share in terms of what was shared by Ms. Paul?
Yeah, look, so all great valid points. And I think oftentimes our conversations are, theoretical, and then, it's then how does it translate and how do we actually apply it? So, Ms. Paul, great, I think, part of this conversation that needs to take place. One of the panelists said, look, we need to raise the esteem of the sports industry. Absolutely. I do think that often what happens, and you see a lot of times, is people think of sports as kind of just this kind of large, to your point, kind of a volunteer, not a lot of money involved. You should be there's an important part of this is development, right? So a large part of it is development. It's providing sports training and the like for kids and young people, and that's important. We shouldn't get away from that, right? From the development and the training and providing those types of opportunities. The conversation though has to be like, while we're doing that, right? We also should be having a conversation about the profits, the revenue. How do we generate revenue and profit? And so oftentimes the conversation, it kind of becomes one, right? It's important, again, I'm this theory, of course, but it's important that we separate those conversations. All the things, look, national pride and playing for your country and all those things are important, absolutely. But out of that can also become some things that are profitable and generate revenue for the country and for the participants. And I think separating those conversations absolutely is what needs to happen. And so for me, it's just figuring out a way to separate the conversations and do something. Again, and just part of that though, and I think back to, we talked about some missed opportunities and some things that are out there. What you're seeing, even now I'm seeing some in Africa, is people are building these training academies, right? And I think there's an opportunity in the Caribbean to build these academies that will house, feed, educate, and train young people, right? There's one Rise Academy in Ghana. There was a Manchester United, an old scout. He'd been scouting African players forever and taking them to Europe. He says, man, wouldn't it be great if we just started our own training academy here? 20 years later, 2 years ago, the Egyptian investor Mansour invested $120 million in something that this guy had started with $50,000, right? And now they've got this huge academy. They bring 100 kids in. Now they are buying teams. They bought a team in Denmark. They bought a team here. And then they're going to be the San Diego MLS franchise. So they started with just an idea of a training academy. And now it's blossomed into ownership and the like, right? And so they're building an academy in Senegal. I know it's a guy, he's building it. It's a public-private partnership. They're going to bring a lot of kids from West Africa, particularly to this academy to train for basketball and soccer. Now the NFL football in Africa, NFL Africa is big. They're going to have an NFL Africa Academy there. And so I think one of the opportunities that you have is to start building these academies. And so, and that's a little bit, it blurs the lines, right? We're giving back, it's volunteer, I get it, it's that, but we're also with an eye toward this is something that can be good for the participants and more importantly, can be good for the entire nation.
I'm so happy to hear you say that because while you were sharing, one of the things that came to mind is FIFA under the leadership of Marlon Glean, who's in charge of the Grenada Football Association. They're actually building a training academy in Grenada. So I think that was so good to hear because that really tells me that they're definitely taking a step in the right direction when we're thinking about sports as a business and enterprising sports throughout the region and the diaspora, especially in our Caribbean communities. So once I get off this call today, I'm definitely going to go give them their kudos and tell them, well, thank you for being innovative and making that push because that's where it starts, right? And I'm so happy to hear you in the room reinforcing that today. This conversation really needs to continue, and I feel like we need to find a way to bring it even deeper into our communities, have a larger engagement. So one of the things that I am going to advocate for is for us to have a larger follow-up conversation when we can have more people in the industry within the diaspora, particularly in the Caribbean region as well, in the room. But Katie and Council Katie, and I know you were about to, did you want to add something? I saw that you unmuted. Was there something that you wanted to share? I didn't want to side over that.
No, I appreciate that. I agree with everything Jeffrey said. And I think what Ms. Paul said is exactly what I was talking about before, about pride traditionally has been the reward for being a great athlete. You get to travel and be on the main stage. But I think using what you have could go a very long way. It could be something as simple as starting a podcast or a YouTube channel to talk about these issues and using the following that you have and building a community around that. Before you know it, you have athletes in different countries who are going through the same thing. And now you're building value. And if you're exceptional at what you do, I mean, that's even more leverage for you to make a change and to represent your country on the grand stage, right? Like if you are the difference between losing and winning an Olympic, I'm sure that your nation is going to figure out a way how to get you there, how to pay for your hotel, how to do all of these things. And I think with the power of the media, there is a lot that those in power stand to lose if it's bad publicity. So if the storyline is there are these incredible athletes that cannot go to the Olympics or cannot go overseas because the nation won't pay for their hotel, something as basic as lodging. I don't think that's a story that many leaders would want on the front stage, especially if you're doing your best and you're asking for the bare minimum like water. So I think it's and obviously not encouraging any bashing of leadership or any house that you're a part of, but really just in a professional way, raising the issues and sharing your story and building a community around your experiences and understanding that you have value. And I think it would be helpful to highlight the issues, but also building a community where you can connect with others who are navigating similar challenges. So again, understanding your value, the people who are involved in these deals, they understand that without the athletes, there is no show. So I think it's important for athletes to understand that and being willing to say like, I'm not going if these are the terms that we have to go on. I think that changes the conversation a lot once those in power understand that you understand the value that you add.
Can I add real quick too? I think part of what we have to do too is because it's you're in the Caribbean and you're in St. Lucia. By the way, I represent Josh Williams, the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl winner. Very proud of him. Does a lot of great things in the community here and there. Very proud of him. Very proud to represent him. But here's the thing. You're in St. Lucia. We've got folks in Jamaica. We've got people in Barbados. And sometimes, you're here in the States and there's kind of a real kind of Caribbean American feel because you're kind of here, right? And the conversation's a little bit easier to have when we're spread out. We have to figure out how to have these conversations, right? We got to have these conversations, right? And we can't be so spread out and apart that the people in St. Lucia, you're looking that we're not talking to the people in Jamaica. We're not. And so part of the beauty of what Dr. Nelson is doing is pulling that conversation together, right? We should be trying to solve these problems regionally, right? We should be trying to solve these problems within our own family, right? And so I think the conversations have to be more. Sometimes we get in our little silos and we think about ourselves as only, I'm from St. Lucia, I'm Jamaican. We gotta really understand, and that we are all connected. This only works if we're working together. And we have to, I think, build this out really in a way that is regional, right? It's you start locally. Then you build it as regional, and then we start making it obviously a global. So you take a league again, netball, you start local, then you build it out, you move it here, and then next thing you know, it's a global network. But it starts with us talking to each other about what's working, what's not working. What are you seeing here in Barbados? What are you seeing here, in this place? Conversation's got to take place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I am always one for conversation, and Dr. Nelson certainly is one for conversation. And I really applaud her for creating these spaces where we can have these open and transparent conversations where we're talking about these issues. And especially as we think about, one of the things that Dr. Nelson has taught me, always think about the future, is the sustainability for the future for our communities. What does that look like, right? And she always encourages me as well to think outside of the box as well. well. So being able to have this conversation and to create the space for that, it's absolutely important. And I look forward for times when we can delve into this conversation more deeper, carry this into other spaces, and to be able to strengthen what has started on this call today. I'm just going to try to wrap up with a few more questions, but Ms. Paul had her hand up. I'm going to pull her in one more time to share some feedback with us, and then we're going to move into two last questions just to wrap it up. I had many more, but the conversation is so hearty, moving, and engaging, and I want to be mindful of everybody's time on the webinar today. I'm so happy that you all chose to come and to share such important information with us. So I'll have Ms. Paul share her feedback, and then we'll wrap up with two more conversations so we can just be mindful for everybody here. But I am so honored that I got to be a part of the process for centering this conversation, and I cannot thank you enough, Council Jeffrey, Council Kadian, and Safia, for just being here in the midst, ready and willing and able to share of time, space, energy, resource, knowledge, and intellect to be a part of that conversation. So Safia, please go ahead and share. You had a question.
Oh no, I was just gonna give some feedback. So definitely agree with you guys. I guess I didn't get to finish that. So despite this culture that's existing, a few of us at least, coming up, we're working with and mobilizing to see how we can make a difference, sorry. And one of the things I think you guys were talking about opportunities, one of the opportunities or things we see that there are some gaps maybe we can fill is to improve the fan base of the sport. So for instance, netball, for instance, right now it's more of us just playing, watching ourselves. But we're working on, creating packaging or media that entices persons to come, maybe having things that happen at the game that entices the audiences to want to be there. Maybe they feel like when they see the recaps, they missed something. So there's, once they do want to come to the sport, then we can start maybe paying a small entrance fee, selling things at the games, all of that upcycling, maybe the t-shirts, having team t-shirts that people can get into. I know a lot of, I see even organizations, cricket, for instance, they have those t-shirts where they resell them, and that can be also a part where we're able to make some money. So these are some of the things we're working on to see how we can start to change the landscape, but we're contending with, the overarching culture that we're also trying to fight through. So we do agree that once we band together, get more of the countries together, even when we meet in the spaces where more countries come together, that we will have the ability to make a change moving forward and package our value better so that we get more from it when people engage with it.
There you go.
Thank
You guys
you.
are making strides. That's amazing.
So, one of the questions I would want to ask as we lean forward into wrapping up, we tapped into this a little bit, but if you guys had to share one point each, what role should government, educational institutions, the Chamber of Commerce, it was just mentioned in our chat in terms of the importance of the chamber bringing enterprise to Caribbean culture. So, what role should governments, educational institutions, Chamber of Commerce, and the private sector play in developing the business side of sports? What roles do you see them playing, if you all want to touch on any one of those?
So currently, my firm doesn't really do a lot of work with international athletes. I'm hoping for the opportunity to work more closely with those abroad. But I'll say from the perspective from the U.S., there's so many changes in sports right now, from NIL, which is not as regulated, or there aren't very clear rules, to changes in the transport portal. There's just so many things happening. So I think that regulation is like a huge part of how the government could be involved in athletes and helping them navigate this world of business. I don't know what the rules are in these various Caribbean countries in terms of being in school and taking advantage of brand deals and working with third party companies. But I think that that's an area in which the government can put policies in place to encourage athletes to monetize on their athleticism with third parties. if there are regulations that restrict that, perhaps there could be some reform to help to expand those opportunities to give athletes that opportunity. And secondly, I think the theme of today is just education. So putting together programs that will help athletes understand, like, these are the opportunities that are available. These are the resources that we may offer to help you navigate that, whether that is putting them in contact with agents or attorneys, people who are able to help them to understand the world of business, structuring business, how to enter contracts and negotiate those contracts. So I think regulation and education, those are probably two of the main areas in which government and other entities can assist athletes in becoming more of a business.
Thank you so much. Council Jeffrey, do you have anything to share in addition to?
Yeah, none of this works and none of it gets done, certainly at a high level, without all of those particular players in the ecosystem working together, right? So I'll give you an example here. You see, whether it's the NBA or basketball, football, soccer, you have these huge stadiums, those were built primarily with public dollars, right? With government dollars, right? And so you see these very huge public-private partnerships with a lot of investment going both ways. None of this gets done without the parties figuring it out and working together. Of those, though, and I do think that it's certainly the chambers of commerce, I think, have more influence than any of the other parties, particularly in dealing with and pressuring governmental entities to do things, right? And so I think, again, here, if the chamber's there, whatever they may be, I just think they're business folks, right? They've got the money, right? They're the business owners. Here, certainly, the chamber has outsized influence on a lot of these sports decisions and what happens. I'd imagine it's the same in most places. And so all of it has to work together, but it is important that the chambers of commerce say, hey, look, we can all benefit from this. We can all benefit by having this tournament here or having this event here. And this is what it means in real dollars. Because ultimately the government, they're moved by the dollars, right? Like most people. And if you can show that this particular event, what we're doing here is going to generate X amount of dollars for this entire community, people are moved by that. And so for me, getting the chambers involved is absolutely instrumental in making significant change and push within this industry to get governmental entities involved.
Thank you. I wanted to add a little bit, and just in terms asking a follow-up question on top of that, with what is being shared, because I think it's very insightful. So I just wanted to ask a little questions that would plant seeds. So from this conversation today, how these seeds actually blossom into plants and fruits is so important. So one of the things that I really wanted to raise up, is there any additional things as a Caribbean diaspora where we were talking about everyone has to buy in, we all have to work together instead of like working in silos, being able to have these conversations in multiple spaces, starting local, building out regional. We had a lot of great opportunities and suggestions of things that can do, the indigenousness of sports and finding what is known to us, the question around seeing ourselves as a brand, connecting with our values, having the legalities of that, having the right supports. Is there anything else that you think the Caribbean diaspora can do and play and help building a stronger sports economy in the Caribbean? Do you think there is anything else that you all would like to add in terms of that?
I think that really covers it. I think also showing up whenever the athletes are in your state or are abroad, and there's an opportunity for you to support. I think attending those games and buying those tickets and showing up. Again, money is the thing that moves the needle. So when an athlete comes to America, for example, and people go and support, that helps their influence, that helps build their value. And I think that that's a direct way in which the diaspora can support athletes who are coming abroad.
Thank you. Anything to add to that, Council Jeffrey?
Yeah, I mean, for me, this has been a really good conversation with some really, I think, good concrete ideas. All I would ask is that we have more of these, because we all know what happens. We have this great conversation. There's a lot of energy, a lot of passion, a lot of ideas. Everybody leaves. And then, by Monday, everybody's kind of doing something different. Everybody's like, for me, and, this is, for everybody on the call, it's just, we should be having this, the sports, it's the future, right? I mean, this industry is going to become a mega sector. It's going to be healthcare, manufacturing, and they're predicting the sports sector to be somewhere third or fourth. It's a sector. And so for us, and then we dominate the sector. We shouldn't be having this conversation. We should be dominating it, not just on the field or the pitch or the court. We've got to figure out ways to dominate it from an industry standpoint. The way we do this is we have more of these conversations here. We have more of these, take the show on the road. We have more other places, and really start talking to people and helping people build this ecosystem out and understanding the value in it. So all I would add is we have more of this.
Thank you. And I support that. And, as soon as I'm speaking to Dr. Claire later on, I am going to reiterate some of the sentiments on this call, and really, really shared how moving that it was to be in this space. Now, I have always known that I was never the athlete in the family, but what I can do is make sure some things are run properly. So I was always an official, or, I understood my spot in the whole spectrum when we think about it. So now I'm also thinking about, how do we expand more? How do we have this larger conversation? How do we bring this sense of conscientiousness towards sports through our Caribbean region and throughout the diaspora? So I'm going to give everybody a chance to kind of wrap up and share final reflections with this last question. And then Ms. Paul also, yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to add
Go
quickly
ahead.
to what you previously were talking on, some
Okay.
opportunities I think the diaspora can assist with.
Yes, please share.
So for us, I guess, with the limited resources, things like opportunities at schools in the area, because sometimes you don't have to go to a division 1, 2, or 3. It could be a community college in a specific state, but there is a sporting program where they can excel, they can still get an education, and that could benefit that school in that region, but also that Caribbean athlete. So that exchange. Additionally, the other way around, where maybe scouting, because for instance, us, we have some in our sport. Let's say netball, we would have this one extremely standout player, but in order for them to get opportunities in our sport, for instance, they only look at the top 12 countries. But there's this one athlete who is like, she could play for a top 12, but she's with us. And so finding ways to get that one athlete maybe into a different team where they can now blossom and both sides can win, so to speak, I think are areas that will help bridge the gap for the Caribbean athletes who maybe we don't have as many resources at home, but can maybe explore if we get into a bigger pool, a bigger bucket.
Thank you so much.
I
That's
think
really
those ones.
important, especially with your perspective from being actually active within the community now in the Caribbean. So that is definitely something I'm going to add to the list as we plan for build up from this conversation. What does the future, the next step of this conversation look like? So to wrap up, I'll give everybody the opportunity to wrap up. We'll start with Kadian. We'll add Sister Sophia to come in and be a part of to have her final thoughts. And then we'll end with you, Council Jeffrey, too, as well, just to wrap up the rest of the call. But I wanted to thank you guys once more for coming today. I was so enriched and moved from this conversation. The conversations with my son is going to look even different as we're educated and talking and engaging around sports. So you guys have contributed so much to me just as being the host and the moderator for the call. So I can only imagine how rich it is for the other people who are listening to as well. But as you all look ahead, as we all look ahead, right? Because also everybody here is a part of the conversation. Let's look ahead to like 2035 or the years and beyond. What success would you each like to see for Caribbean sports in the industry? What would you like that success to look like? So if you had to sum it up, what would that future success, not too far from now, in the next 10 years, in the next 15 years, what should that success look like? What could it look like? We'll start with with Council Cadian. We'll go to Sophia, and then we'll end with Council Jeffrey.
Thank you. First, thank you so much for inviting me here tonight. Today was it was a really enriching and exciting conversation, and I'm definitely going to leave this room thinking about how our firm could be better partners with athletes and break into the international space more. So I appreciate everyone sharing and for the opportunity to be here. To answer your question, I think I would really like to see athletes compete not just athletically, but in terms of monetizing their value and monetizing opportunities. I think a lot of athletes from the Caribbean, they could compete on a grand stage in terms of their athleticism. So I'd like to see them compete in terms of getting the top brand deals, in terms of getting the top endorsements and building a brand. So I think those are the primary areas in which I would really like to see athletes from the Caribbean succeed, and just shifting the mindset from just the experience and the pride of it all and really seeing themselves as a business. And then finally, just using what you have. I think a part of the value is understanding that whether you're from a small Caribbean country or you're from a bigger community, like you have something to offer. There are people who are watching you closely, and like engage with the community that you have and figure out ways how to build on that.
Thank you so much, Safia. Final thoughts as you look ahead in the next 10, 15 years, what would success look like for Caribbean, the sports industry to you?
Absolutely. So I'd like to echo the words of Kadian and say that I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you for having me. Also, lots to think about, so much opportunity in our Caribbean space. So looking forward to all the things we can do, collaborate, even locally, across the islands, and then of course across countries, to share resources. I think something I feel like success for the athletes would look like it's all the way through to our curriculum. So what I mean by that is, these days we've transformed in the sense that we're offering things like agriculture or offering physical education even as a subject, whereas prior that was not something that folks would even want to do in terms of education. So having some paths that athletes see that, hey, I can actually, work in this field after school versus thinking that athletics is just something I do after school and I stop doing once I start working, right? So for me, if it's in the streamline where it's a professional path, it doesn't have to be just an athlete. There's things that are related to sports, whether it be a coach, an agent, learning how to be those things within sports. I think once it gets into our education system, I would feel like our people value it more because we value education highly. And so now that will trickle down into how we see ourselves in the sporting realm and how we even turn that into, hey, you have to pay me a salary for this, or there is an amount that I have to trade for this skill. I think that may help, with regards to where the shifting of the mindset is, if it's ingrained within our education.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I will pass it over to Council Jeffrey to share his thoughts as we wrap up with his sentiments on as we look ahead in the next 10 or 15 years. What would success looks like for Caribbean sports in the industry? What would you like to see? What is the future that we envision? For us to know where we're going, we have to have a picture in our head. We have to know where we would like to be and what that benchmark is. So what do you see for us as a part of that?
First, again, Dr. Nelson, really appreciate you putting this on. Really appreciate you having me on, Paulette. You were a great mediator, absolutely a great moderator. I'm sorry. And really appreciate you taking the time. This has been a fabulous conversation. For me, first would be increasing the investment from 0.1% to 0.4%, 0.5%, like other nations do, understanding the importance that sport has on an entire country, an entire region. That's one. When we get there, we can start having those other conversations. It's the investment and understanding the appreciation. The second is for UE or UTEC, to Sophia said it, there should be an institute for the study of Caribbean sports. I mean, this is that important, right? There should be a curriculum. There should be an institute where we're training young people, not just to participate, absolutely, but to be stewards of this, right? To really start directing the research. So from the university standpoint, oh, there should be an institute that are training the doctors and lawyers and financial planners and the trainers, right? That I would see as success, right? Success for me would be having one, maybe two academies where we are bringing these young athletes to some place and training them, educating them, and the like. So for me, it's investment, right? It's building the academies, and it's having the universities get involved with curriculum building and training the next generation.
Thank you all so much. I think that wraps it up well, and that leaves us a good place to continue. I can't even say end because this definitely has to continue. And I think we have really hit into a conversation, a sweet spot that is so important. Safia is sharing that she's ready to build a sports academy. So I'm already seeing opportunities emerging. I'm thinking about the Olympians in Grenada, whom my sister and other people would have close contact with, and they're now competing. Anderson Peters, for example, he's competing and he's excelling in his field. I mean, he's number one in the world, if not number two, somewhere around there. But they're out on the large stage representing us well. So I feel as people of a Caribbean diaspora, Caribbean descent, we have so much to be proud of. And I think we have a rich opportunity here to help strengthen the sports and industry within our communities, within our smaller countries. My son is American, 100% Texan, so you all know what that means because everybody have a different pride for their state. But what is also so much important to us and also important to him is his Caribbean heritage, so as a person. And so being able to have these multicultural experiences that not just transcend into experiences, but transcends into multicultural successes, right? And that was all one of the things that I always wanted to do. How do I come to the US space, absorb, learn so much, contribute to the environment in which I am, because that's who I am, but also be able to give back to our communities. And I think that this conversation today, and with what you all are doing the absolute same thing. It has been an honor, total pleasure. I cannot wait for the follow-up. You all will be hearing from me. This has to continue. And I'm already thinking about how do we create a space within the region itself to where we can all come in, invite people, and have a larger conversation. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you for Dr. Nelson and the hard work that she does with the Institute for Caribbean Studies. We give her honor and homage today. We thank you, everyone that's a part of the team for the Institute of Caribbean Studies, the Caribbean Chamber of Commerce for being present here today. Marilyn, thank you for so much being a part of our discussion and audience and sharing heartily. I really appreciate you guys, and we will be talking soon. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And when we share this conversation out to everyone else, we hope that it was enriching to you as it was to us as we exchange here together. So blessings to you all, and we will be talking soon.
Thank you.
Take good care.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.